Today on The Games That Made Me, we're speaking with Joel Haver, who makes amazing content on YouTube. Whether you've seen his rotoscoping content or you've seen the 12 films he made in a year, or even if you've played Dispatch and you liked Waterboy, Joel Haver is instrumental in so many great things. So it's a pleasure to have him on. Joel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about games because it's something I don't get to talk about all that much. I'm always yapping about movies these days.
Yeah, you know, your second channel with movies is one that I like a lot, and I'll link it on here as well because I feel like everyone knows the main Joel Haver channel, but not as much people go on the one with movies, and that's so deep and analytical. But I want to start off with talking about the content that kind of first allowed you to burst onto the scene, the rotoscoping that you do. Now, you made a great video that explained how to do it. And I made a couple animations myself. I'm not an artist, but it's like, oh, that seems pretty intuitive. And I have to ask, how did you find out how to do that? Because using Absinthe and all of that, it makes a great final product, but it's not the most intuitive process. So how did you, what was your inspiration for making that content, and how did you find the tools to allow you to do that?
Well, first I want to say, you said you're not an artist, but it sounds to me like you made a couple of artworks. So you must be an artist. So
a little bit.
we so often talk down on ourselves, but we are all creative and worthy of the label artist. You don't have to make.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's very true. But I saw this video maybe in 2019, 2018, where people were playing around with this tool, Absinthe. It's this like kind of like automatic, but it's very stupid comparatively to what we have nowadays. It doesn't have like a memory, but it's this automatic rotoscoping software where you draw every 10 frames rather than every 20 frames, and then the software will kind of do the in-betweens. It'll try to paint over the image with what you've given it. And it was a tool. I had seen a video of people running experiments. Like, I think there was a video of a guy putting cell shading on The Simpsons. He was using EBSynth to like paint over existing stuff, and like Rick and Morty. And it was interesting to me because I think I saw it and I'm like, oh, this is cool that people are like messing around with this tool and like finding a way to like use it, but no one had like used it over something they made themselves yet, and it was that simple thought that I'm like, oh, I could record myself, create a style over myself, and it would like allow me to make these like more quick, efficient rotoscoped animations. And it was something I ran a couple of tests on. I did like a music video first, and then I did a video called Galactic Emperor, which was the first animated sketch I did. And it was really fun, and the style has refined a lot over time. I put in a lot more effort into it these days. I'm working on a movie in that style right now, which
awesome!
Which is going on 9 months, and it has a lot more to go. But
I believe it.
I'm drawing many more frames these days. Sometimes like 80 in a shot, to the point that it's like, oh man, we're just almost rotoscoping at this point. But
it's doing it. It's so funny because you bring up a good point where sometimes it is like traditional rotoscoping, because I remember doing it. I would draw, every 10, 20 frames, but sometimes it just wouldn't stitch it together right. So I'm like, oh, I have to do like the next 5 frames kind of.
The second you move your hand in front of your face and you turn away and back, it's like, oh, you just added 5 frames, you know. But it was a tool that I just hadn't seen being used, and I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is my ticket. I was just like, I was doing weekly uploads at the time, and I'm like, here's another new tool to try, because I'm an artist who loves experimenting and trying new things. And if I see something that excites me or gets me like inspired, I will try that thing. And fortunately for me, I didn't hate doing it, because if I did it once and I was just like, that was fine, I'm gonna move on to the next idea. But like I every now and then I came back to it because I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
this allows me to make a sci-fi short. This allows me to make this, because most of my ideas at the time had to kind of be grounded, set in an apartment.
Like one location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was shooting with my friends, and it's like we're not going to be believable as like
Yeah.
like an alien or
Aliens.
this or
Yeah.
that, unless we did a lot of practical effects makeup that we just don't have the experience for. So suddenly this tool allowed me to tackle an idea I had every now and then. I'm like, oh, I have a Star Wars parody. Oh,
Mhm.
I have like this idea for a medieval parody, and it opened up doorways for things I could make beyond my limitations. And I think that's what kept the tool exciting for me. And
Yeah.
over the next year and a half, I would drop one of these animated videos every now and then. They took a lot longer than my normal
Mhm.
videos for the most part, so I think that I was always a little trepidatious with. I'm like, oh, do I really want to like set out and spend a week or two
It's a
on
big
like
undertaking.
and then I just did a few more ambitious ones. I did like a Scooby Doo one that no one
Yeah.
watched initially, and then I did the RPG one, the first time you play an RPG, which
That
is
was
a
the big one, I think.
yeah, and that was the one that skyrocketed things, and I double whammied that. And this is one of the few times in my film YouTube career that I think I made a smart tactical business move. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the time I shoot myself in the foot willingly because I just want to pursue some artistic idea, like making 12 movies in 12 months.
Yeah.
But when that RPG video took off, I'm like, oh shit, I need to make another animation
Mhm.
fast, and it needs to be video game related. So
Yeah.
I had this tailing mission NPC video
Yeah.
in
That's a
my
great one
mind for a
too.
while. Yeah. And I was always picturing it as a live action video, but I was just like, oh man, we're not really believable as like
Mhm.
mobsters,
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
animate, it gives you enough of a distance where you can be a little more believable. So I was like, oh, I didn't even consider it, but this idea I've had for a while could be another animated video. So I
Yeah.
back to back, like 2 weeks later, I dropped the NPC one, and that kicked off the algorithm,
Mhm.
and like suddenly all my back catalog was getting viewed, and it was
Yeah.
all because of this unique style that I think people were curious about. They're like, what am I looking at?
Yeah,
Because
it was so unlike anything else. Where the output of working with Absinthe is so unique, even to the world of rotoscoping, I think.
and the timing couldn't have been better because I think EB Synth, if it just started nowadays, it would just get lumped in with AI slop because
Yes.
it does have that computer artifacty quality to it. But
Mhm.
in my mind, it's a lot more charming than AI because
Agreed.
it's messy, and like
Yeah.
AI is always refining, always refining, always looking better.
Yeah.
But EB Sense does have a beauty ceiling. It's not gonna ever
It
like
doesn't
not
look like perfect. That's
it's
good.
not yeah, it's never gonna look perfect. So it retains some of that handmade, human made quality to it where the computer assisted nature of it is almost showing the cracks,
Yeah.
whereas like something like AI is always trying to improve and hide the cracks. So I think it hit at the right time because it was 6 years ago or so my channel
Mhm.
took off, and it was right when people were curious still about technology and it hadn't become such a blight.
Yeah. We're
With
like it. Yeah.
AI has become such a blight on creativity and such a nuisance on the internet that I think something that even looked close to Absinthe hitting now would just be like
Written off, kind of.
written off, and people would
Yeah.
also be like, oh, why not just use stable diffusion, because
Yeah.
you could train it on a character and then you never have to draw a frame again,
Yeah.
which is not interesting to me. Like, I'm doing this whole
Agreed.
movie in a way that I could easily do it and get similar results with AI 500 times faster, but it's
Mhm.
just not interesting to me.
Well, you
Yeah.
bring up two really good points there, Joel. The first is kind of exploring outlets of creativity just for the sake of doing that. And I feel the same way where sometimes I'll see a YouTube channel, for example, and it's like Sean's Fire Emblem channel with like 500 Fire Emblem videos. And I'm like, that I couldn't do that because it's just the same thing over and over. And, good for people who can do that. But I really feel like the YouTube algorithm rewards kind of that sameness. But I found it so much more fulfilling to just do something different. I mean, me doing these interviews, just, this is something different. I did some animations, and it's just more fun to kind of push yourself in new directions. And I think you're absolutely right about AI as well, where, I'm sure you've gotten this with your videos. I've gotten it with some of mine where, some asshole in the comments is like, it was just AI. It's like, no, I spent hours and days and weeks doing this. And, so it can be frustrating with the modern AI ecosystem. And I want to ask you about this too. You did 12 movies inside of 1 year. I have a little bit of experience making movies, like high school, college, film festival, that level. I got to ask, why would you make yourself suffer that much? 12 movies in a year is big. So tell me a little bit about what was the inspiration for taking on such a big challenge there.
For me, I was doing weekly uploads on YouTube at that point for 5 years. It was a ballpark that I felt like I had mastered. I knew how to get it done. I knew how to every now and then have a home run, but for the most part, just do some good videos every week, And to me, it felt like there was a ceiling on it that was both the ceiling creatively and the ceiling like as far as my ambition could go, to get an upload out each week. Even if I was working on a bigger project in the background, I would have to keep pausing that bigger project to be like, okay, I should spend a couple of days on my weekly upload. And then I go back to the bigger project and then I'm like, okay, I got to do another weekly upload. And it was a great routine. And I recommend everyone, especially like young filmmakers, do a weekly short film, because the second you convince yourself that you can make something fast and reliably and consistently is the second that you give yourself the superpower of creating anything. But with that said, I felt like that lesson had been learned by me. And then I was reflecting, and I saw all these features I had made, because every year I tried to make at least one feature, like a bigger project. And those were the projects that I look back on so fondly, because the ambition of them, the depth of character and the depth of story were just on another level altogether than what you can pull off in 5 minutes. And I think that was like, okay, I really want to, while I have like some safety net that I've like saved up over the years on YouTube, while I have like while I'm young, I wanted to like really double down and be like, no, I'm gonna make feature films, and that's my MO from here on out. And my insane brain was like, the only way to do that is to like pivot in a big way,
push it really hard.
It wouldn't be special if I'm like, hey guys, I'm gonna stop making shorts to work on a feature for a year, because dozens and dozens, hundreds of people have done a no budget feature and then pushed it to festivals, gone the Clerks route, gone, the route Sean Baker, all these artists who make stuff super cheap, at least they did in their early years. It wouldn't have been a new thing. I would have just been another guy doing the
festival circuit,
indie film festival circuit distribution. Then I get funded for my next film, and then I'm now part of the industry, and I'm in a cycle of a film every 2 years, every 3 years. And
they put you on some Marvel movie, and you're stuck in chains.
For some reason I have an indie darling, so they're like, you should direct the Eternals too.
And you're like, I don't want to do that.
But then the paycheck's too good, so you don't turn it down, and it's like a one for them, one for me mentality. And then these artists wind up making Marvel movies forever because it's a virus in their brain. And like all the movies they make after their Marvel movie have almost a disease that they grew making a Marvel movie. And I digress, but I was just like, I wanted to do 12 features because it felt like an internet way to approach feature filmmaking, where the internet is like this place with maybe not complete freedom, but so much more freedom, where you're not answering to anyone. You're making stuff on your time, on your dime, and people are hyper aware of at least on YouTube, people are hyper aware of the artist behind it. And I
Yes.
thought that those qualities made like creating movies online so exciting to me,
Yeah.
because there's an ever detached feeling with like, oh, people just saying like, oh, that's a Netflix show.
Mhm.
It's like A24 made that movie.
It's a production, not a person.
It's a production, and the companies get so much credit. And in this like class warfare we exist in, where these companies are literally the ultimate evil in the
Yeah.
world. I mean, I literally just turned down a streaming service series because I'm like, I don't want to like make my art for a company in a day and age
I feel that.
where they are evil, and
Yeah.
like they are just a plague on the culture.
They just care about that bottom line, and it's like, we'll crap out whatever to get to there. I know. I exactly agree. And you hit on something really interesting there that I agree with, where it sounds like what initially started your YouTube channel and got things going, after a while became something that kind of stifled creativity, where you're making something every week, but it's kind of contained. And it just reminds me of like, if you see a band in concert and they're kind of a one-hit wonder, like every show they gotta sing that same song every time, and nobody really cares about the new stuff they're going out after. So I definitely think you're hitting on something correct there, and the notion of going big to force yourself into something new is something that I think is very admirable, and something that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if you've ever watched The Office, but it just reminds me of character Andy Bernard wanted to go be like a star, and he's like, if I have a backup plan, I'm not going to put everything into it. So he like took a shit on his boss's cars, because he's like, I need to burn my bridges. So but it makes sense to go big like that. And with your content, I think what really catapulted it to the mainstream initially was the fact that it was intertwined with gaming, and you can tell in your content there's a big appreciation for the nuances of gaming. So tell me about the first game you remember playing that really kind of sparked that passion for gaming, or what was that first game that really introduced that world to you?
That's a great question. I grew up like a gamer. Like my life was like school, go home, video games,
Same.
school, go home, video games. Every now and then hang out with friends, play video games. Like
yeah. Video games
I
take top priority.
I don't really hold any regret over that childhood, because I
Same.
had a lot of fun, but it was a bit like a bit much, like I wish I was a little curious, maybe, that like, oh, what if I went on a hike more, or, like did some,
like introduce a little bit more to it.
Yeah. But nonetheless, video games were kind of my whole childhood. And I remember my brother and I getting an N64 as our first system.
Wow.
So it's tough to say the first one that like really wowed me, because every game as a kid, like I would play like the Incredibles tie-in movie game and be like, this is the best game ever. I had no barometer for quality. I was just like playing anything. But my first game on N64, I think, was Yoshi's Story, and my brother and I loved Yoshi's Story, and that one was on repeat. But the first game I remember playing and being like, oh my God, this is like something else, was Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, fantastic. Beautiful game.
Somehow my brother and I, at like 7 and 9 years old, like got the idea to get this game, which I'm sure had a lot of hype behind it at the time, but it feels a little like, oh, this strange Japanese developer who made like one kind of artsy game,
especially at that age, that you were like on this one.
And we like got it the day it came out, which is something I take a weird pride in, that like we got Shadow of the Colossus on release day. And like we were like, oh my God. Firstly, we're like, these graphics are photorealistic. Graphics can't get better than this, which is so funny in hindsight. But just like, I remember just looking at like how the horse moved, and I'm like, there's so much love and care put into this. And it's a very minimalist game. It's not the kind of game that is like throwing shit at you constantly to
Yep.
make you pay attention. It's like, oh no, it's just these long, kind of quiet rides
Yeah.
between these giant epic boss fights. And obviously the boss fights are the highlight, but it really, I think, left an impression because I'm like, oh, this game has like an artistry to it
Hmm.
that most games that are like sheer entertainment don't have. And I think that's the reason, as much as it's obvious to say, like, my brother and I were just like awesome boss fights, awesome, stabbing a giant is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why, but like my brother and I would play that every year until I was probably like 18. Like we would
Oh,
just
that's
go back.
fantastic.
Yeah, like just we would play through it every year. We'd do the time trials, we do this
Hmm.
and that. And it was just like, oh, I think what brought me back to that is the feeling of like an artist. And it's
Yeah.
something that's really hard to place in games, but we see it more and more, especially with indie games, that like you can have like an auteur of a game, like an artist who
Yes.
is the author of a game. And Fumito Ueda, I think is his name. I
Yep.
probably butchered the pronunciation.
You're doing as good as I could, I'll say.
But he's somebody is like, oh no, he's only made 3 games, but
Hmm.
it's like each of them are so distinctly him, from the visuals to the gameplay to the physics to the mechanics to the story. And I think that left such a huge impact on me for that reason, that
Hmm.
I, in the way that I think movies more regularly do, and they show me like the inner workings of an artist's mind. I felt
Yeah.
like even as a kid, I felt that with Shadow of the Colossus. There's such a mystery to it, such a story
Yeah.
that isn't being told to you directly, you know?
Yeah, you bring up so many good points, and that's one hell of a game to get yourself into gaming, because it is such a unique experience. And I was talking to another gentleman who has a channel, and we were talking about this as well, where it's so rare, especially in the modern AAA space, where it takes like hundreds or thousands of people to make a game. To have those games where it's so clearly one person's vision, and they're able to bring things around this central idea so well with a small team. And Shadow of Colossus, those liminal spaces between the boss fights, I just was so fascinated with that as well. I played it when I was maybe 12, 13, and like you said, of course, the giant boss fights are epic and awesome. And as a young kid, that's amazing. But there was something so beautiful about that journey to get there, and using the sword to like find where the Colossus is. And I think you hit the nail on the head, where looking into the mind of the artist who made that, and just seeing this beautiful environment and story, and of course the twist at the end. So that is one hell of a game to start off with. When you continue to play games, as you got a little bit older, what were some of the games maybe in your teenage years that really captivated you?
Well, what changed was is the 6th generation of consoles, I think,
Mhm.
and like Xbox 360
Yep.
really was a turning point for me, because multiplayer was a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Xbox Live Party Chat.
That was so great when it first came out. Yeah.
So starting in middle school, my friends and I had a basically everyday tradition of getting home from school and playing games together.
Yep.
And sometimes we'd all play like a game separately and just be in a party chat.
Uh-huh.
And but a lot of the time we'd play games, and this one feels so funny to recommend. But like Call of Duty World at War,
Amazing game. Yeah.
what was such a moment for me, because
Yeah.
obviously like Modern Warfare 1 was really the game where they locked in on that formula
Yep.
and found it. And even that is such an incredible game. Like for the time, like
Yeah.
the helicopter crash in
Yeah.
the
All
city. I'm
gillied
just
up
like,
and that.
yeah,
Amazing.
I'm just like, oh my God, this is like a movie. It's like
Yeah.
like games have finally become like movies. But then there was the social element where it's like every day when you get home from school, you're still talking to your friends. And
Mhm.
like as much as I could poo poo us like being a bit lazy and not, I was a little chubby at the time. I wasn't, I wasn't.
Everyone who played Call of Duty was. It's okay.
Yeah. I could be like, oh, we should have played outside more, and we had some fun every now and then. That wasn't video games, but like,
Yeah.
there was a beauty to it that is like, oh no, we have this like group of like, it was like 10 to 12 people who somebody would always be online.
Yeah.
You get home from the school day, and then you sit down at your Xbox, and a friend is there, and you're gonna play a new game together, or you're gonna go back to freaking zombies on World at War. I was the guy who always wanted to play zombies. I'm a zombie fanatic to this day. I was just kind of having another phase of playing Black Ops 3 zombies.
Yeah. You can't escape it. Every couple of years for me, I have to go back and be like, what's going on with zombies?
Zombies is like such an addictive game mode. I don't think any other game has done it right, what they're doing. And I loved World at War, and I felt like the multiplayer clicked, but as zombies, I would always try to obsessively be like, friends, get in, we're playing zombies. And everyone's like, no, we want to play like Halo Reach. And I'm like, I want to play. I was the one friend who just wanted to do like Durai's, Shino Numa over and over and over again. And it's funny, the game mode has progressed a lot since then, but there was a beautiful simplicity to World at War. Yeah. And then it carried on into Black Ops, I'd say, the first one.
Agreed.
But zombies was such a beautiful thing for me because it represented an early version of what I think like now Fortnite can even be, which is like the game as a chat room. It's like a game where you don't have to be that invested, that locked in, and you can sort of idly let your brain play it while you talk to your friends and you laugh and you have fun, and every now and then you're like get the power, somebody get the power, but
it's like with Fortnite, I agree where I'm not a big fan of like the drop in, first, you have to you kill everyone and be the one that survives. But that gameplay does lend itself to a very social element where the firefights aren't constant. You're looking for equipment, so you kind of only have to zero in at a few times. And you hit on something great too, where around that time with World at War, Black Ops, Modern Warfare, that cinematic quality really came about. And I find it very interesting with your love of film that was such a highlight for you. This is dating me a little bit, but I think Modern Warfare 2 came out when I was in college. I was a sophomore, I think, and we got it midnight release and played it from midnight to 7 a.m. for the campaign because it just was like one big movie. And that social aspect of those games was so crucial, where I played a lot of World of Warcraft in high school, and half the time you're not really doing anything but chatting with your friends and typing or chatting on Ventrilo. So I think you're absolutely right, where there are some games where that social element makes it so much fun, even if you're not like the best at the game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you as well, because you have such a great background in film and a clear knowledge of that. For you, what's like your favorite game that really hits a lot of those elements that you like in terms of storytelling or characters? Is there a game that comes to mind that is key to all of that?
I actually think I was about to call it a recent game, but I'm now terrified that it is 6 years old. And that's The Last of Us 2 was a game for me that I'm like, oh my God, like this felt like a revelation, where games are using their mechanics, their length, their specific interactivity in order to convey emotions, in order to convey subtext. Like I think gaming is always on the surface. Even going back to Black Ops 1, I was like, this story's so sick, the twist, Victor Reznov, that's crazy, but like it's
very just in your face. It's
like just like holy shit, the numbers, and a lot of games kind of just have like a fun story. Most games settle for like, even like the first 3 Uncharted games, they were just fun, I think the 4th one was a little more elevated than that when it came to story, but like Last of Us felt like, oh, gaming has discovered how to do what film has been doing for a century, and that's to use the tools specific to it to enhance the storytelling. Because if a
Yeah,
story doesn't need the medium, if a story isn't necessitated by the medium, you could just tell it around a campfire. You know,
exactly. Yep.
you could just orate a story to a group of people
Mhm.
if the story isn't so tied to it. But the way that The Last of Us 2 uses your I wouldn't I think it's a bit of a cop out to say like your culpability, like your responsibility in
Mhm.
carrying out the actions. I know
Yes.
people are a little like, oh well, I had no choice, I had to do it. But it's like, yeah, but that's the choice the game was making you make, and that's why it's interesting.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
it's like in the first Last of Us, to I'm sure at this point spoilers are out
Yeah.
the
You
window for
can
the
you can
first
spoil
Last of Us.
anything. Yeah.
But The Last of Us one, it's like, yes, you don't have a choice to kill the doctor as Joel, and that's why it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's not like, because you are being forced to inhabit the shoes of somebody who would do
Yeah.
something different than you know. And a lot of gamers seem to miss the point, especially The Last of Us 2, where it's like, it's not that you are personally doing the action. It's that you are being put in the shoes to see what it would feel like, to be somebody who is at this point of desperation, at
Yes.
this point of grief, and like being Ellie, being Abby, like that switch that happens is the most obvious way that the game is forcing you to look inward, because it's like, now empathize with somebody who we've made you hate, you know. And
Yeah.
that's like a really
Yeah.
powerful moment. But just the moment to moment of like having to be Ellie and killing a dog, like people are like, well, I had to kill the dog. And it's like, yeah, but you had to kill the dog because Ellie had to kill the dog. And that's
Exactly.
interesting. That is storytelling, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that was so compelling to me. And then just like the fact that it is this game that ultimately is, it's not a revenge story. It's not a story about how violence is bad. Like, that's part of it. Like, people like oversimplify it and they're like, oh, it's a story about how like you're bad for doing
Yeah.
violence,
You
but it
shouldn't
makes
be
you do
violent.
violence. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's a story about forgiveness. You know, that's what the whole thing is about. That's why the last scene we see is Joel and Ellie talking for the last
On the
time.
porch.
Yeah, and her promising that she's going to try to forgive him.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
her letting Abby live is her forgiving Joel. It's
Yeah.
her, and it's like, that's the kind of richness in storytelling that I think gaming has just barely gotten to, just probably a dozen times or something.
Agreed.
And I think it's something that, to me, if gaming was more like that, I would play more games as an adult.
Yeah.
Because like I really do look for like rich human experiences when I engage with an artwork these days. And it was almost torture to see the gaming community so torn on The Last of Us 2, because I'm like, you guys were given like the first game that like treated you with respect. You know, it's a game
Yeah. And
that
people
is
just
like,
shit on it.
yeah, it's a game that's patient and like trusting you to go with it into bold, interesting places. And gamers almost like showed their hand as being very close-minded and very
Yeah.
like unwilling to go with a bold narrative, which
Yeah.
is probably true of audiences in general. Movies, the popular movies, that are oftentimes that. But I think what's so cool about The Last of Us 2, and even like something like Red Dead 2,
Yep.
is the fact that gaming's blockbusters are like character driven dramas.
Preach. Yes.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
gaming, like obviously these are massive corporations, and it's like easy to like, you know, be like, well, I shouldn't, Naughty Dog, Rockstar,
Yeah.
they overwork their employees, they, and that's all true.
Yep.
But it's like, it's so cool that like, for some reason, like a lot of games are just kind of surface level, but then the best games, the biggest and most expensive games that are being made are like, oh no, let's tell them like a really grounded story about an
Yeah.
old failing cowboy who gets tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like not like Marvel smashing
People punching
heroes.
each other in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the most dramatic moment of Red Dead 2 is a cough.
Yeah.
Like when we hear Arthur Morgan cough for the first
Yeah.
time, and it's like that's beautiful storytelling.
Agreed.
It's funny, it does happen in indie games as well, but the middling games are pretty surface level. Like I feel
Mhm.
like that yearly releases, the
Yeah.
double A, triple A sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I gotta agree with you because with Last of Us. So now I personally prefer Last of Us 1. That being said, I'm not like a Last of Us 2 hater. Like,
Yeah.
I have a 6-year-old daughter, so that changed a lot for me. I played Last of Us before her and after her, and you mentioned like people who will be upset where, oh, why is Ellie doing this, or why Joel kill all these guys, and that point of, you are not the one doing it, the character is, and you're working through them, I think is something that some people struggle with. And you mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2, which is one of my all-time favorite games. I'm a huge geek for that game and for storytelling, and the thing with Arthur Morgan and his character, that was one of those rare instances for me, and that might be for you as well. You're just astonished at the depth that they were able to achieve with something where it's this AAA rock star game, and it's about a dying cowboy, and I'm feeling emotions. It's not just me robbing trains and things like that. So I definitely agree with Red Dead Redemption 2, because I felt like the storytelling with that game, it had these big moments, of course, but those small things, when Arthur gets diagnosed, or when he's talking about being scared of dying and things like that, I thought it did that so well. And games in general are kind of known for those big moments, but those smaller character moments are something that I really feel more games should focus on, because that's what sticks with me years later, not punching some guy in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so cool that like Rockstar is this company torn between worlds, and they're like the best,
Yeah.
like they're the best company to look at to understand all of gaming, because they
Yeah.
have
The worst and the best.
Yeah, they have the GTA Online predatory microtransaction like money tank that they just could print money with. And then at their core, though, they still desperately like want to focus and prioritize like single player storytelling and like delivering you stories that like it feels like you watch an entire TV series by the end of it. It's like you're with these characters for 60 hours. It's like, no, you're real. And like to deliver that all in one package, it's almost a miracle that they have only cost $60 for this long. Because it's like you pay $20.
Don't say that, Joel. They're listening.
No, but you pay like $10 to $20 for a movie ticket, and that's like an hour and a half of entertainment that you can't even replay. And it's like, and I will admit that like $60, I get it. Like that is expensive. Even 70 that we're seeing now, 80. But
for like an experience of that length and that depth,
it is almost funny that games have all been sort of equally priced, save for like indie games. There's not like a consideration. And I guess it's the same for movies. If somebody put out a 5-hour movie, you'd still buy the same $20 movie ticket or $10. But it is funny that we really turn our heads at like the price of games when they offer us oftentimes so much more, which is interesting. Yeah.
I agree with that, because if you look at old pictures of like gaming catalogs from like the 1990s, it'll be like Super Mario World for just $60. I'm like, hey, Super Mario World's great, but you compare it to the amount of story and depth, and it's the same price now. Of course, inflation, but I agree with that, and I don't say it too much because I don't want to tell Rockstar like, hey, I'll pay $200 for Grand Theft Auto 6, but like I kind of would if it's really good. I gotta ask you as well, speaking of AAA games versus more indie titles, your work on Dispatch. You know, we talk about games with choice and consequence. Tell me a little bit about your approach to the character of Waterboy. And before you do, I got to tell you, I had another interview with a woman who runs a channel. Her name's Anna. And we were talking about Dispatch. She's a fan as well. And she's like, I said, hey, did you choose Blazer or Invisigal? She's like, I'm Team Waterboy all the way. and they denied me that. So I was like, I have to tell Joel about that. But tell me a little bit about how you approach that role. You know, first of all, how you got involved in this amazing project, but also how you kind of, took that role and made it your own.
Yeah, Pierre Charette and Nick Herman, who are the writers and I think directors of the game, they reached out to me and they're like, "Do you want to read for this superhero game?" And I was like, "Okay, sounds interesting." I looked up their company. It was called I was like, Ad Hoc Games. They have no games. I'm like, who is
that was the first one.
And like I saw that they used to work at Telltale. So that was interesting, but like, I was like, sure. And then they sent me like an animation test and I was like, oh wait, this is like, it was the scene of Robert Robertson and Blonde Blazer on the billboard together. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, this is actually like
this is great. Yeah.
But I read for a number of characters. I don't think I was qualified, but I even read for like Robert Robertson.
Okay. That would have been interesting. Yeah.
Would have been interesting. I don't know if I have the same Aaron Paul star power that role required. But so I eventually got the part of Waterboy, and it was recorded over I think like 6 or so sessions, and I'd go in and do the lines, and at first I was trying to do more of like a, oh, hey guys, I'm, like something like a little like dorkier.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, we just want you to sound like Joel. And I was like, okay, like Joel with a stutter or something. And he was really hard to read because the way they wrote the script had a lot of like that, like stumbly nature written into it. And in some of the lines, I had no way to make sense of it. I was like, what's he trying to say here? And they're like,
he's very tongue-tied, so putting it on script is tough.
Yeah, it was quite difficult to find that, and I would end some days being like, oh, I botched that, but and then even like looking back at some of the scenes, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm too like, you could see me trying to read these lines, but like everyone loves it and everyone says I did a great job. So
yeah, I thought it was great.
So I'm very grateful for that. And it was so cool to see it become a phenomenon, I was not sure how this game would do for them because they were doing the, chapter release, the like episodic release. And I was like, oh man, is this going to work? It's like, I feel like people just want to play the whole game at once. But it was actually like a case where probably the first time ever that the episodic thing like really paid off because they did it weekly.
It snowballed, yeah.
And usually, like when they used to do Telltale games, it was like monthly,
months
in between.
You like forget it in between, yeah.
So like the weekly release, even though it was a bit silly because it's like surely the game has to all be done, you could just drop it, but it really worked because it kept it in the conversation for a whole month.
Yeah,
and while people like theorized and discussed, and it is a very like, what's the word? Like horny fan servicey game.
Of course.
It's the kind of game that like is like almost begging for fan art and begging for like porn.
It's out there probably.
It's just begging for people to make porn. And it is. I've looked it up. I was like, I wonder if there's Waterboy.
I was gonna say, is there a Waterboy Rule 34? I have not searched it.
More than you can imagine. But it's very funny that is the case. But I guess maybe that's a marker of knowing your game is huge. Once there's like a lot of
someone's taken the effort to do that.
Yeah, but it's so funny because there's some characters who are clearly the ones who are like sexualized.
Yeah,
but then every other character sort of adjacently gets that treatment, and Waterboy was one of them. And there's been a lot of like thirst traps of Waterboy and stuff, and that's
Waterboy really, thirst trap works out.
Yeah, it's perfect. It works perfectly, and it's really funny to see. I mean, it was like all my like tagged posts on Instagram are just fan art from that game, and
Oh, that's so fun.
I kind of like, I've done voice acting in the past, but never like a character that people like, resonate with to that extent where
Mhm.
like it's like, oh, that I am like, some people's favorite character. I'm the
Yeah.
person they go to a convention dressed as, which
Yeah.
which is so interesting because to give a lot of credit away from me, Waterboy is like made. I feel like the voice is just a small part of, like, it's just a portion of what
Sure.
makes Waterboy. Like the design, the animation, like that.
Mhm.
Those are people who spent months and months and months of their lives on Waterboy. I spent
We know from doing animation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I spent 6 days as Waterboy, and then I did some press things and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
like, I really want to say that like I feel like it was an honor to be involved and just to be the voice behind people's like hard work and creativity.
Yeah.
And it was a really well animated game, and just a really fun, well written game that was like pulpy enough to be like engaging, but like lighthearted and fun at
Yeah.
the same time. And it was cool. It was a cool experience.
And I think with Waterboy, his character arc, especially if you choose him, which don't worry, I did.
Thank God.
His character arc of, finding his kind of confidence and everything like that. It's not hard to see with the caliber of writing that game and how they were able to write that arc, why it resonates with so many people,
Yeah.
and, I think your performance really illuminated that arc and really made it so tangible in a way that really connected with people. So I think it's a great game. I can definitely say my wife, she's not a gamer. She plays maybe one game a year. She was like hooked on it instantly.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. And I remember in an interview you made a really astute comment about the nature of choices in that game, which I'd like to bring up here and get your thoughts on, to expand on, where you play a game like Mass Effect or the Telltale games, which are fantastic in their own right, but you had in a lot of those games unlimited time to make a choice. And
Hmm.
with Dispatch, they very smartly, in my opinion, gave you a limited window to make a choice. And you talked a little bit about how that might influence your decision making. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because I think that was a very interesting point you gave in one of the press junkets.
Yeah, I think what I like to see, I think the big innovation of Dispatch is that ever stops. Like, for better
Mhm.
or worse, a playthrough of Dispatch is always going to be roughly the same length because
Yep.
it's not pausing. There's no gameplay section where you can walk around the office and lose 30 minutes just stumbling into objects, picking them up. It's like just story, story, story,
Mhm.
and even the Dispatch sections are all timed. So
Yep.
it's a game with a very deliberate pacing, and I think that was really interesting to see because usually games let you make your own pacing in a way.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, that pacing led to this cool innovation where, like, middle of a cutscene, you're making a decision, and then we see that animated decision play out immediately.
Yeah.
And essentially the game can just be video files, but it's so seamless that you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy that in the middle of a scene it didn't stop, and now I've swayed it. And I think that causes you to make choices so emotionally rather
Mhm.
than like logically. In
Yeah.
a lot of choice driven games, you're like, okay, but what are the
Let me
repercussions
weigh
of this
this
choice?
and
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
but like you only have so much time to do that, so you're really being forced to act on emotion. And what my emotions revealed to me is that I will always helplessly pursue the emotionally unavailable woman that I can fix her woman.
You win Invisigal, I'm guessing.
which all logic sensors in my brain are like blonde blazers, the beautiful,
Yep.
good choice. But for some reason, making those choices emotionally, I was like, oh no, I have now
I can
chosen.
fix her.
I've chosen the broken. I can fix it, but it worked out in the end. So,
Yeah.
so that was good.
Yeah, I know, for me, I was like, oh, I'll go blonde blazer and stuff like that. But then when it got to the actual choice, I was pretty stuck. I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
what? So I actually had to pause the game for a little bit and
yeah,
break the system and
yeah,
really
yeah.
think through it, because that one was I couldn't do it instantly. So tell me, Joel, what upcoming games, whether they're coming out this year or further in the future, are you looking forward to?
I mean, the big one, I'm forgetting the name, but is obviously Fumito Ueda's next game.
Mhm.
They got that one trailer where he rides the head of like the
Yeah,
Colossus, and I'm like,
I'll put
that,
it up on here. I forget the
yeah,
name too.
yeah, that looks incredible. And I am a staunch The Last Guardian defender. I
Uh-huh.
think that, like,
I
I
am
think
too.
I love Donkey. I think Donkey did irreversible damage to that game's reputation by like making a very viral video that like bashes it. And I'm like, oh no, this is such an interesting like new game that like The Last of Us 2 is challenging us. It's like,
Mhm.
what if you don't have complete and
Control.
total control over the game? What
Well,
if we put a
yeah,
real living creature in between you and progress, and you
that's
have
the
to communicate and you have to teach it, and you know, and
yeah.
be patient, you
Like
know?
everybody complained about that, but I was like, isn't that kind of the point? Like
Yeah.
it's a living bit. You can't just tell it what to do. You need to teach it. And it's frustrating, but to me, that was a design decision. And I like that.
Yeah, I made back in the day. I had a very very brief stint making like video essays on a random side channel,
Yeah.
and I made a video. I was so inspired by that game and so frustrated by like some of the discourse that
I
I made a
think I
video
saw that. This is
called like
going way back. Yeah.
I called like The Last Guardian powerlessness is the point or something.
Yes, I
Eh,
believe I
eh,
saw that
eh,
years
I
ago.
I don't know how good I was at formulating arguments at the time, but I just felt so compelled because I'm like, oh, this game, like more than any game to this date, made a companion feel
Mhm.
alive. You know,
Yeah.
like more than like all this AI talking to chatbots. You
Yeah.
know, somehow like just like a nonverbal creature
Mhm.
felt so real because you had to contest with it, you know,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
had to like be patient and look inward and be like, I'm getting frustrated right now,
Mhm.
like like you would if you're training a dog or like
Yeah.
even more deeply having like a fight with a loved one, you know,
Yeah.
you're and like the game asked a lot of you, and I like games and artworks that ask a lot of you.
Agreed.
And that game, I love it, and I'm so excited for anything he touches.
Yeah.
He's like a singular artist in gaming, and I don't and I'm closer to your wife these days than myself as a kid. I play about 3 games a year, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, then they have to be really good games, you know?
Yeah, they have to be games. I mean, I will say I am sort of helplessly addicted, going on a year to Balatro. I will just, you know, if I'm
I haven't
feeling,
played it because I'm so scared. I know
yeah,
I'm just staying away because I'm like, it's going to consume me.
if I just have like an hour to sit down, I'm like, do I like, I don't know, start a movie or do something productive? And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna play Full Ultra. And
Yeah.
I've deleted it and re-downloaded it. I don't let myself play it on my phone because I know
Yeah.
that is a nightmare waiting to happen.
Yeah. Too
I only
available.
too available. I only play it on my PlayStation. But yeah, I don't play that many games, and I guess like obviously I'm curious about the next Naughty Dog game.
Mhm.
You know, I
Yep.
think they make great stuff. The initial concept is not as exciting to me, but I'm sure they will find a
Agreed.
way to tell like a really cool story. Like, because I'm really gonna go into their games for the story. But like,
Yep.
I do like. I think Uncharted 4 and the two Last of Us games have such human stories. And the second
Yeah.
you're like really going big and conceptual and sci-fi and like aliens and hitting stuff with a like
Yeah.
super sword. It's like, okay, how are they going to inject this with like a story I care
Like
about?
with
And they,
humanity and
with
yeah.
humanity, and they can. I actually have confidence they will. And I'll play GTA 6, of course,
Mhm.
because like, you
Yeah.
know, that literally 13 years since the last GTA. That's crazy, if not more,
Yeah.
I think. Was it 2013 GTA 5?
I just know
Yeah.
it's been on like the PS3, PS4,
Yeah.
PS5. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Which is crazy because we got 4 and 5 on that same console generation, and now
Yeah.
it's been so long.
If you've ever seen that image where it shows like the releases of Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar games, and then it just goes off a cliff once they start Grand Theft Auto Online, it
Yeah.
hurts my soul.
Yeah, it's really quite sad. But maybe, I mean, the trailers look like Rockstar, like I said, is just on this level where they are like they have bullshit money to throw at a product
Yep.
because they know they'll make it back. And for that reason, like no one else could compete with their fidelity, their depths
Yes.
of gameplay systems, their lengths of stories.
Yeah.
And I know one of the like Hauser brothers left, which is putting a little bit of like a trepidatious feeling in me where I'm like, ooh, because I really do feel like those guys are like tremendous artists. You know,
Yeah.
those guys are like guys who really love to tell stories. They love gangster stories. They love these westerns. They love this, and like it felt like their games were a means for them to like tell these incredible stories. Ever since like GTA, like San Andreas, the stories have been like such a focus, and Bully, and you know, and so I'll play GTA 6 and hope for the best.
Same.
As far I keep listing big AAA games, I feel like in my essence of like being an indie filmmaker, it's it'd be like me saying I'm excited for Avengers, you know. but I need to think. I got so hooked on Blueprints.
Oh yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
I got very hooked on like dangerously, like up till 5 a.m. Like trying to like I could not put it down. I was like, no, I need to do another run to like get the casino room so I can make 200 coins to then buy, like, you know.
It's so underrated, that game, because that was the first game in like years where I had a physical notebook where I'm writing things down, and it just made you think so much, where I was the same, where I went down a rabbit hole with that game, and like my wife would come in and she just sees me like walking through rooms with writing in a notebook, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? But tell me a little bit about why you love Blueprints so much.
I think it was the randomness worked for me. A lot of people are like, oh, the randomness was a mistake, and it was like,
no, that was the best part.
The people are like, how do you have a puzzle game where you can't guarantee you get the right puzzle pieces? And I'm like, but that's what made it so addicting. You know, that's like,
you have to like think about like, oh, I'm stuck with these rooms. How am I gonna?
It's like, okay, I got a bad draw this time, but can I do anything to progress my understanding of the game? Can I do anything to like put a piece in place for a later? And like sometimes you couldn't, and those runs sucked, but it was like so addicting in a way that like if it was just a puzzle game where you had all the pieces, I don't think I would have kept playing. You know, I think the randomness is like, oh, I need to do it again. It's like the gambler state of mind where I'm like, this next
run's going to be the one.
next run's going to be the one. And I only played it through the credits. Like, I know it's like kind of game that has like
too. Yeah.
It has like 80 hours of more puzzles to decode. And I'm just like, that was good. I did that without a walkthrough. I feel proud of that. And I'm like, I don't need to lose more time to this game. So I like hung up my hat the second the credits rolled.
I did the same, because I'm notoriously stupid when I play like Metroidvania games, and that's not really 100% Metroidvania, but some similarities. So getting to the credits where I think I had to look up like 2 things, I was like, you know what? I'm proud. I'm not going to keep going. And Joel, I know we're coming up on time here, but one thing with these interviews is, based on what you're telling me, I like to recommend a game or something that maybe you haven't played. And one game is coming to mind. It's a pretty short game, but have you ever played or heard of the game Spec Ops: The Line? Are you familiar with that?
I have. I played it on Steam back in the day.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. A very interesting game.
It's one that I'm glad you played, because it reminds me of like The Last of Us 1 or 2, where you're doing bad things, but to the character it's the right things. And it came out around a time where Call of Duty was big and it advertised itself as like, oh, it's a Call of Duty, shoot people for 10 hours, but it really subverted that expectation. So as you were telling me a little bit about those games where, like Last of Us 2, where you are doing things, but it's really the character who's doing it. That's what makes it brilliant. It just made me think of Spec Ops: The Line. So I'm glad you played that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't quite remember the specifics of the ending, but I do think the game is a pretty profound statement on like why soldiers carry out orders. Because I think the ending made him a little like schizophrenic or crazy, which I don't I wasn't a fan of that, but like I do like this thing where you make these decisions feeling like they're a good thing, and then in retrospect you see how you were being used, and I'm like, oh, it kind of gives you empathy for people who do carry out these horrible commands, because given the information they have like no reason to doubt that they're doing the right thing, but then when you pull back you see the truth of it, and they're being used by their higher ups, they're being used by the government. And I think there was a really profound statement to be made, and it was really interesting in contrast to like a Call of Duty, which is just like military porn. And it was like
we're the good guys, kill the bad guys sort of thing. I'm very glad you played that, because I definitely think that's right up your alley. But yeah, Joel, I mean, we're coming up on time here, so I'll let you go and enjoy the Saturday. But it was a great pleasure speaking with you. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Sean. This was a delight. It's great to go down memory lane. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and let you go, Joel, but looking forward to your next content. And this is asking a lot, but is there any idea of when that movie you've been working on for 9 months will come out, or is it still just in production?
I have an update video dropping quite soon. So
beautiful. I'll link it.
So yeah, it'll be up this week.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to that. And Joel, great speaking with you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. See you, Sean.
See ya. Bye.